How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and welcome to the ABL podcast, episode 58. Thank you for being here exclusively on Patreon first, later on YouTube. As I always say, and as you most certainly know, without you, there is no me. Thank you for joining. We got a lot of good topics on deck for you today, some of which could have been videos on their own throughout the week on my regular YouTube channel, but I felt like I owed you guys a great podcast to kick off 2019 with, the first podcast of the year. And I don't want to talk too much more in this intro. I'm going to go ahead and get straight into it. The very first topic is one that I thought I was done with. I didn't want to talk about it anymore. It brought me so many trolls, undue grief, undue attention, hacking attempts. I got a community guideline strike, all kind of things, because I had a different opinion than the majority. Not even the majority, just a small minority that were really offended. And that topic is the issue of Patreon censorship and two big stars leaving the platform, and that is Jordan B. Peterson and also Dave Rubin. Now, to back up a little bit, let me explain how we've gotten here today and why it's a topic. The elephant in the room is that this whole issue of Patreon started with Sargon of Akkad. This is a content creator that has really edgy content. I will not call him a conservative, more like a left-leaning guy, but the topics he covers are those that are also covered by a lot of conservatives. We have certain points where we agree and disagree, but that's not really important. The point is that he's really edgy. Patreon caught one of an old podcasts he was on, well, not that old, from early last year, like not even a full year ago as far as months are concerned. In the podcast, he was saying some racial slurs, although it was not directed at the particular racial group. It didn't really matter. He was always seen as a guy that was a little bit too edgy, had been kicked off of Twitter before, was not getting ads on YouTube, had been demonetized officially. So he was kind of like persona non grata in many particular social media outlets. But then when that particular podcast came to light and the language was revealed, Patreon said, okay, we cannot have him on the platform anymore. And if you're on YouTube right now and you don't know what Patreon is basically a crowdfunding platform where you can have contributors that will donate to the favorite content creator like a Sargon of Akkad, myself, or anybody else, X amount of dollars per month. It could be $1, $1 million, whatever it is, they could donate that per month. Sargon was making $12,000 per month, and he was booted off of the platform. As a result of that, it was a groundswell of support for him. People were saying that he shouldn't have been kicked off. It's the censorship. We need to have the government step in. Internet, Bill of Rights, all this, that, and the third. Some big content creators have been getting a lot of heat because they're not leaving the platform like a guy such as Sam Harris did. He's a big content creator over there, or was over there as well. He deleted his sole account. But other guys are being pressured into doing it, and a lot of contributors are doing the same thing. So as a result of the contributors leaving and the pressure being put on Dave Rubin and Jordan B. Peterson, they have now decided to leave Patreon also on January 15th. They're going to try to get everybody to come over to their websites and donate through a form on the page directly rather than through Patreon itself. Now, here's a few things about that. First of all, let's back up a little bit more. The contributors leaving is hurting everybody on the platform. If you have content that is somewhat left or right leaning, well, more right leaning, of course, or centrist, libertarian, any kind of content like that, you're going to be affected. You got libertarian guys that are saying, hey, you can't have the censorship. You got people that are just against what happened to Sargon of Akkad, and those that are kind of like joining in. That can impact a content creator to the tune of losing 30% of their Patreon revenue, 40%, 50%. And it's not chump change when you're dealing with the bigger guys. I'm a very small Patreon person. My Patreon is not that much. I don't really depend on it. But you got guys making like 12,000 like Sargon was, 10,000, maybe even in the 6 digits sometimes per month. A lot of money. So when you losing 20%, 30%, and you have staff, you got bills, it really hurts. So this is really a big issue. If you have people that are being influenced by all the, well, not all, but some of these right-leaning people, they're going to affect all right-leaning content creators on the entire platform. In my opinion, I think Dave Rubin and Jordan B. Peterson are leaving the platform to go to their own websites because they're trying to have a more stable source of income. They may realize that they can't be on Patreon too much longer because A, they're going to lose faith in some of their fans that want them to side on the side of free speech. But we'll get to that in a moment. And then B, they may continue to lose revenue and they can't depend upon it on Patreon. And C, they may be removed from the platform as well because they feel like Sargon could be an omen for dark times ahead. Now, they want to be on this whole moral high ground about censorship and freedom of speech, stuff like that, but I call BS. Shout out to my man, Matt, from Beauty and the Beta. He did a video with one of the Patreon support people or trust and safety. Well, he didn't really do a video with them. He was on the phone call and did a transcript after the phone call. In the transcript, the Patreon person, when asked about, externalities, people that may have pressured them into removing Sargon, they were talking about the payment processors. You're talking about PayPal, Stripe, Visa, MasterCard, etc. If they don't remove Sargon, then there could be a problem with the payment processors. They may not want to deal with them anymore because they're harboring negative people that are going to be a bad image on their particular brand. Okay, PayPal is trying to promote itself as a brand. Same thing with Visa, MasterCard, or whatever. So if articles come out talking about, Patreon, they're supporting these alt-right, neo-Nazi races, which nobody that has been talking about this really is. Sargon is not, Peterson is not, Rubin is not, but it doesn't matter. But we get to that in a moment. If those articles come out, it's going to be bad PR. So it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. The PR is still bad. So PayPal, etc., they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. They're going to stay away. That's going to hurt Patreon, and it may totally close Patreon because if you can't allocate payments or pay them out, how are you going to be around? Patreon is basically a clearinghouse with some social features on it. That's basically all it is, but it's very popular. It's the most widely used one, and it's easy for people to go in there, support one person, and then support others from the same account. It's convenient, it's easy, it's nice, it's safe, to the point. Patreon is a great website. But if they cannot work with the payment processors, then they have nothing. Having said that, if you go to Dave Rubin's website and go to the donation page, there's a PayPal button right there. Now, if Patreon said that PayPal and Visa, Stripe, MasterCard, etc., were also going to be against Sargon of Akkad, then why do you have PayPal on your website? Also, as further evidence of this, you had an alternative called Subscribestar, which Sargon of Akkad was on after he was removed from Patreon. Now, this website was up for a little while, but after Sargon came and other guys came that are kind of edgy and stuff like that, PayPal removed their option to pay in or pay out from the website. After that, Stripe did the same thing. So if you don't have PayPal, you don't have Stripe, you have no website. If your function is to collect payments, charge cards, and then pay out to the actual creators, okay? So within a very short period of time, Subscribestar was taking no more new members or contributors to members or content creators. It was basically over with. So if that happened and we saw it, we have evidence of it, then why would you have PayPal on your page as a form of payment? Because it did the same thing Patreon did. So that's why I say I don't believe this whole moral high ground argument, because if the argument is about a moral high ground and not wanting to be censored and shut down, then why do you support PayPal? Isn't it the equivalent to Patreon? I don't see the difference. But for now, I digress. I think my point as I close this topic on up and get to my next one is that I think Patreon is fantastic. It's a wonderful website. Sargon, in my opinion, was removed because he was seen as a liability that was going to hurt the entire platform. And he did, even though they still don't have him there. But they probably weighed their options. It's like, okay, if we kick him from the platform, he's going to make a big fuss about it. It's going to be a lot of videos. We may lose some subscribers to our service, but guess what? We're still going to be here. All right. A lot of the other guys that are on Patreon have not felt any kind of effect from the Sargon fallout. You'd be surprised who does not know these individuals we talk about all the time. You may speak about somebody daily, watch their videos daily, but a lot of people do not know that person at all. That's usually how it goes. Like when I go outside, I'm not usually recognized by a bunch of people. You know, every now and again, somebody come up to me and say, I love your videos, but that's not really that common. I got 250,000 subs, but I'm not necessarily some celebrity at all. Sargon's in the same boat. So a lot of Patreon people, the content creators, are doing just fine. They're not losing 20% of the revenue, 30% of the revenue, half of the revenue, because they are some kind of way linked to Sargon directly or indirectly. And that's pretty much where I leave that story. I'm going to be here on Patreon. I ain't going nowhere. So thanks to everybody who has stayed and did not leave during the Sargon of Akkad Patreon purge. My next topic is women's marches being canceled all across the nation because they're not inclusive enough. And when I mean inclusive, I mean a few things here. I ain't talking about just race. I ain't talking about just sexual orientation. I'm talking about the status of actually being a woman. Now, what do I mean? Why am I being vague? Well, let's put it to you like this. I don't want to be too vague, but if you are a man that becomes a woman, should you be at the Women's March? You know, and then how do you actually become a woman? If you have your penis still, can you say that you're a woman? If you had a penis at one point, can you say you're a woman? I don't really know. You can identify as whatever you want to identify as, but what can you really call yourself when it relates to a gender specific thing? Women's tennis. How are you going to play that if you're born a man? You have an unfair advantage. Women's March. Why are men who are pretending to be women at the Women's March? You could be a man at the Women's March, I'm sure. You could be one of the supporters, an ally or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's probably correct. If that's the case, then why do you need to actually become a woman to go there? Furthermore, let's just say the Women's March does, in fact, invite trans women to their march. That's probably the right way to say it. But anyway, women that weren't born as women. The problem here is that even if they allow them to come in as women, the battle cry now is that is not enough inclusion. Okay, so it's not enough men that are now women. My thing is the same argument I had about the racial element over in Humboldt County, California. You're talking about 75% white area, 11% Hispanic, 1.6% black. How do you have enough black people to fill up a women's march in that particular area of the world? If you live in the middle of Iowa somewhere and you have a women's march and it doesn't have enough trans people, you got to ask yourself, does Podunk Nowhere, Iowa have a big trans population? And if they don't, why are you trying to ask for more? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but that's what the Women's March is. It's a bunch of nonsensical arguments. Oh, you gotta have a penis if you want to be like, they want representation that's more than what's possible. Okay. You may have less than a fraction of a percent of the population that's gay or trans, but they want them to represent like almost a face, be like 20%, 30%, half. That's not realistic. It's not enough people to do that unless it's an LGBT march. Then that's totally different, because now you're inviting people that are of a particular special interest group. And here's my thing. If you have an LGBT march, are you going to say there must be more actual straight men there? Why would you do that? I don't think they would say that. They're probably a protected class, but aren't women as well? What's happening here is that the left is eating their own. You got to have all these small little boxes. And I don't even want to get into the whole race part of it, because you got some black LGBT that may think that the pride marches or whatever they got are too white. So you got to have more black LGBT. I'll talk about Kevin Hart a little bit later in the whole LGBT thing, but it shouldn't really be this big battle over so-called inclusion. A women's march should be about women. LGBT, be about LGBT. If you want to have a men's march or a unisex march or whatever the case may be, have each individual march be able to stand on what they stand on. Now, the women's march, I don't support that at all. That won't really go anywhere. They started as a group that was trying to just protest against Trump. They were upset. They were angry about Trump when he got elected in 2017, when he became inaugurated after the 2016 election. They were upset about Trump being there. So that was their goal, to, I guess, protest Trump. But over a year or two, it's morphed into a different thing. Now it's about whatever they want to get their hands on. They're talking about Islamic rights. You got Linda Sarsour, who is one of the chief leading faces of what's she start? MeToo? I'm not sure about that, but definitely the Women's March. How are you the face of a women's march with a hijab on, or whatever that neck and head covering is? It makes a whole lot of sense. You are part of a culture that truly oppresses women. At the same time, you say your culture is beautiful. You want to go over here to the Women's March and then try to talk about feminism and stuff like that. Those two things don't really mix. Islam and feminism are like oil and water. They do not mix. It ain't going to work ever. But yet and still, I'm to believe that you are preaching that particular doctrine to me, and I got to believe it. I don't. But to get to my next topic, R. Kelly. The series has hit the airwaves on Lifetime. It's called Surviving R. Kelly, and it has accounts from our backup singers, his ex-wife, a lot of other people. I think maybe his brother was on there. Now, if you don't know who R. Kelly is a singer that was most popular in the 90s to the early 2000s. I say 94 to like 2004, 2005. That was his big run. He's still very popular now. A lot of his music is, timeless to many people. And I will say that his music, just from a talent perspective, is good music. However, he is a dirtbag to the 10th power. This guy was married to a 15-year-old Aaliyah, and they put on the marriage license that she was 18. They forged the documents. He's had a long history of dealing with underage girls. Being in Chicago, where he's from, as a grown man in a car, hanging out in middle school, parking lots, waiting for the girls to get out. You also have an element of people knowing what he does, parents knowing what he does, but yet bringing their daughter around him all the time. There was a sex tape where it was alleged that he was having sex with an underage girl in the tape. That got out to the whole world. Everybody saw it. This guy's been ducking the law for a long time. I don't know how he's not in jail right now, but that's the case. So you have this series coming out, and of course, R. Kelly and his camp wants to sue them for having the series come out on Lifetime, but I think it'd be a frivolous lawsuit, because what you have in that particular documentary are people just giving their particular stories that in their cases, what happened with R. Kelly, whether that's the ex-wife, backup singer, former quote unquote lover, whatever the case may be, everybody giving their point of view. I'm not really sure how you can be sued for that, but for now, I digress. The details are horrific. Somebody said they saw R. Kelly having sex with Aaliyah when she was 15 or 16 or even younger, when she was on a tour bus with them. Some said that you had guys that were going to procure little girls for R. Kelly. And when I say little, I mean like 13 to 14. That was his particular age group that I think he was most interested in. A sick person. Michael Jackson had some of the same allegations, but nowhere near the mountain of evidence that R. Kelly has against him. I mean, you have a marriage license in Chicago, Cook County, with him and Aaliyah on it, and the date would have put her at 15 years old. And logically, if you're married to somebody, you're probably having sex too. So this guy been the creep for a long time. It's coming up right now, in my opinion, because of the whole MeToo movement. That's really big to find up a guy's dirt from the past and try to convict him on it in the court of public opinion. But honestly, all this is old news to me. I've been hearing about it for a long time. The sex tape came out. I might have still been in high school, and I'll be 35 this year. This is very old news. There was an interview on BET where Touré asked him, "Do you like young girls?" He said, "How young are we talking? I have 19-year-old friends." Really creepy stuff. When Aaliyah, I think, was 14 or 15, he went on his program called Video Soul, which was like kind of a talk showy kind of thing where they played R&B videos in the breaks. They had on the same outfit, were dressing alike. Even the hosts were like, "Hey, you guys, you know, there's rumors about you, like you guys are in a relationship. That's how you carry it." But at the time, this girl is 15 years old, innocent, sweet as she can be. And I think R. Kelly took that innocence. And the problem with R. Kelly is people that were around him. Everybody that let it go on, the guys that went out and procured young girls for him, the guys that didn't care about what he did because he was making hot music and they wanted to get on that remix. They wanted to have their voice heard. Some of the girls that were victims of his, in my opinion, were sent to him by their parents. Knowing full well what kind of guy he was, they're trying to get their name out there. The most recent case happened, I think, last year. It was a family that alleged that R. Kelly was holding their girl hostage. Now, there was a press conference with the father of the little girl, and he came out in the suit. It was like you were seeing a music conference. I'm not saying anything's wrong with his suit. I'm just saying the shades and stuff like that. He appeared like he was trying to be an entertainment guy or a promoter or rapper or something like that. Trying to use this particular incident to get his fame out there. That's what I saw from the beginning. That could be wrong. I don't know if it is or if it isn't, but that's kind of the vibe I was getting. And it does not surprise me when you hear guys saying people would send their daughters to R. Kelly for the chance of getting some fame, some money, or whatever the case. The girl that was allegedly being held captive, whose dad came out there like a rapper, said that you sent me to him, meaning the dad, the parents or whatever, sent her to R. Kelly. I believe they're pimping their children out. People don't really care, unfortunately, because they say R. Kelly makes good music. And then you get people trying to defend him, talking about, oh, well, why didn't anybody say anything back then? This is the Me Too movement era. R. Kelly is a bad man, a sick individual, should be locked up, and has been like this for you're talking about 20 years, like 25 years almost. He was married to Aaliyah, I think in 94 or 96, one of those years. She was born in 1979, Aaliyah was, rest in peace. So if she was 15, that would have put the date at 1994. It's 2018 now. He was accused just last year of having an underage sex slave in his house, who the parents brought to him, knowing full well what he had been doing 24 years prior to that particular moment. Now, he said that he was molested by a family member. Okay, I understand, but that doesn't give you carte blanche to do whatever you want, nor do you have the right to violate someone's innocence like that. People were saying, oh, well, she was young. She should have known better. You're 27 years old with a 14, 15-year-old girl. What are you doing? What are you doing? So I'll pretty much leave that there. All I got to say is that R. Kelly is a bad man. Everybody knows it. This ain't no secret at all. The special, I'm not sure what it's going to do to move the needle. You know, they're trying to sue R. Kelly, that is, and his people. They're trying to sue Lifetime for putting it out, but I doubt they'll actually be successful. The next story is Kevin Hart and Ellen DeGeneres both being attacked by the lamestream, old school, hating media. Now, I got to back up a little bit here to explain to you how we've gotten here today and how Kevin Hart and Ellen are linked together. Let's go back like 10 years. Kevin Hart was on Twitter making some jokes about the LGBT community, some of which were offensive to them. But you're talking about 10 years ago, he was just being young, dumb on Twitter, not really a big deal. And as a comedian, you crack jokes. That's part of what you do. And sometimes they may offend. That's the point. If you are offended, it probably was a good joke. Others are going to laugh at your expense. That's kind of how it is sometimes. So sorry, but this is comedy. You know, you're not doing anything else other than to try and get laughs. That is your job as a comic. But for now, I digress. So there was an announcement, I say 2 months ago, that Kevin Hart was going to be the next host of the Oscars. Within 24 hours of that announcement, some tweets came out from 9 years ago. And then next thing you know, the Oscars call Kevin and say, hey, you have to apologize for these tweets or else you probably won't be able to host the Oscars. I'm not really sure if that is what was said, but an apology was requested. Kevin Hart declined to give one on camera on his Instagram page, but later on Twitter did apologize, but not necessarily because the Oscars asked him to. He was speaking more towards the LGBT community. Now, moving right along, the Oscars replaced him with, I think his name is Andy Samberg and Margaret Cho. If I'm wrong about that, let me know in the comments below. But he was replaced, and I think he was trying to get his job back, or people were trying to get his job back for him. So he goes on Ellen's show. Now, we all know who Ellen is. Ellen was the first person to come out as gay while they were on television. As a result of that, allegedly, she lost her sitcom she had. So she is kind of a trailblazer for a lot of the other LGBT folks, which we'll get to in a minute because this is a deeper story here. So he goes on Ellen's show. They're talking. Well, he talks for a long time, like 6 minutes about this whole situation because obviously she's gay and he's under fire for the LGBT comments. Before he begins to speak, she says, hey, welcome Kevin Hart, your next Oscars host. So immediately she's defending him. She's trying to support him. So he goes on, talk for a long time, is apologetic and whatnot. And Ellen, I guess, was satisfied with what he said and really showed him forgiveness and was really lobbying to get him in there to be the next Oscars host. She was not tripping about the old tweets and the comedy and stuff like that because I think she's also a comedian herself. So she gets it. But the problem is this got to the black LGBT community. Don Lemon went on his show to speak about Kevin Hart and Ellen DeGeneres. Now, CNN is news, right? So why do we have these guys on TV constantly giving us their particular personal point of view about things? Don Lemon might as well just get a talk show. Don Lemon might as well be like Stephen Colbert or Jimmy Fallon. Get a band, go on somebody's random network and have your own late night show. How about that? That'll probably make more sense. Matter of fact, you could do, what's somebody's name? Andy Cohen or whatever his name is from Bravo. Go over there to Bravo and do your own late night show. Bring on political guests, all that. Have them in the gay safe space. But I digress for now. To get back to Don Lemon on CNN, there was a segment in which he got into Kevin Hart talking about, well, I don't think Ellen should be involved with this because she's not part of the black LGBT community who were really harmed by his words. It was really crazy. It was a mess. Basically, he threw Ellen under the bus, who I said, again, was a trailblazer for a lot of the LGBT community, right? Because she came out on TV, lost her show, all that, and was still able to maintain. Don Lemon came out on TV during the actual show. He came out to the world at that moment and did not get fired. There was no kind of kickback. It was all love. Would that be the case if not for Ellen, who came before him? You see what I'm saying? She gave people like him enough courage to come out on TV and be who they are and not be afraid to lose their job anymore. You see? But it's kind of weird how they're eating their own. This goes back to the whole Women's March, because you don't have enough inclusion, not enough LGBT women, not enough women with penises, not enough black women, not enough overweight women, not enough underweight women. There's always some kind of little box they want to put you in and all kind of little arbitrary rules. And then as soon as you break the little rules and break out of the arbitrary box, you get thrown up under the bus or discarded totally from the conversation, which is really a shame. Ellen would be the biggest advocate for a guy like Don Lemon, but it was so easy to throw her under the bus rather than calling her, talking to her, and figuring out what's going on. Same thing with Kevin Hart, but I digress. Kevin Hart, that is going to be apologizing for a long time, which is why when he said that he didn't want to apologize from the very beginning, he should have stuck to it, because now it's never going to be enough. You showed weakness. You say you didn't want to apologize, but now since you did and others are coming at you, people are going to want you to do the same thing that you did for them. It'll never end. The problem, I think, arose when he was getting phone calls later about his comment saying that he wouldn't apologize at the very beginning. It might have been like, hey, Kevin, I'm your accountant and I'm LGBT. I did not like what you said. That's going to be a problem. The money going to be funny. Hey, Kevin Hart, I'm your agent. I'm LGBT. I didn't like what you said. Hey, Kevin Hart, I'm the producer at the movie studio you're working on right now. I didn't like what you said. It probably was a cascade like that, which forced him to come out and apologize for his previous comments after he said he wouldn't apologize. So now it's going to be an apology tour. I would not do the Oscars this year, especially because I feel like they're going to just be probing me to ask for or to give a constant apology. And that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to entertain the crowd, to host a show, and that's it. I'm not here to be a whipping boy or to be humiliated in front of my family, friends, and the whole world. Nor do I want damage to my brand that I've built up over the past 10 to 15 or more years. So big up to Kevin Hart. Hopefully he's able to get through this and not be scathed by it and not be scarred by it. I don't like bullies at all. I don't care what your gender, race, sexual orientation, religion. I don't care about any of that. Bullies are bullies. And I feel like in this case, he's being bullied by some, not all, but some in the LGBT community, especially the black folks who's supposed to be on your side. But all I see is a bunch of haters and crabs in the bucket that don't want to see Kevin Hart shine. But moving right along, let me get to my next story. This is kind of an old one, but I wanted to cover it because to me it was kind of funny. And that is the whole thing with the Wakanda white guy. I think it was Forever 21 or one of these places. It might have been Gap. I don't know where it was. Express, somewhere. There was a Wakanda sweater. It appeared to be one of these ugly Christmas sweaters, but it had the Wakanda stuff on it. And the problem was that a white model was wearing it on the website where you're able to get it from. It was this whole big outrage campaign. How dare you put that white man in a Wakanda sweater? I'm like, wait a minute. It's a sweater. Why can't the man wear the sweater? Who cares? I mean, the man was not like in some kind of, you know what? I'm not really sure if there's any kind of clothing that I would be offended by if a person wore it that was not of that particular culture who came up with the actual clothing. Okay. We're all wearing neckties right now. That's something that came from Croatia that went to France. We're wearing it in America. We have Arabic numerals we use to write with, Roman letters. I mean, all of what we have comes from other places. We're speaking English right now. This ain't England. You know, a lot of our words are French. This ain't France. It's so simple to really grasp, but at the same time, it's so hard because people just don't really understand that ain't no such thing as a cultural vulture, or what else they want to call it, cultural appropriation. Everybody borrows from everybody. The world is a small place in reality. It's big, but it's small. I can get from here, where I'm at right now, to Europe in 8 hours. It's not that big. It's pretty small. So it's easy for us to exchange ideas with each other. That's not really a big deal. Furthermore, you're talking about Black Panther, the movie. How would that movie have done if not for white people or non-black people going to watch it? Yes, black folks did show out in record numbers, probably much more than our population percentage, but it doesn't really matter. It still was much less than everybody else. If we are about 13% of the population and we were 34% of the movie viewers, which is, almost an impossible feat, but let's say that's what happened. You still are much less than majority. So it doesn't make any sense to say that, because this person is white, they can't wear this sweater. When the truth is that if not for white guys and other non-blacks, you would not see a lot of Wakanda merchandise out there because it wouldn't have been as successful. So it's just really silly. I don't care what color you are. You can be black, Puerto Rican, candy stripe, orange, green, yellow, blue, Reggie Biv, whatever color you identify as, whatever gender you are. I don't care what you wear. That's your business. As long as you ain't, doing some kind of indecent exposure, showing your willy to kids in front of the school bus or something like that, I'm good money. Be decent, have no indecent exposure. That's all I really care about. It's nothing to talk about, really. You having a big outrage fit about it. Like, it was this whole big thing on Twitter. It was think pieces coming out. I'm like, really? You're writing a think piece over a Christmas sweater with Wakanda on it. How silly are we? And the funny part about this, before I get to my next topic, is that Black Panther was not even really filmed in Africa at all. It was filmed mostly, I think, in Canada and maybe somewhere like Indonesia or something like that, but nowhere, or Korea, nowhere was this actually filmed in Africa. But yet you got a lot of people that claim to be quote unquote African American getting triggered at a white guy wearing a Wakanda outfit. If it were not for a white guy, there would be no Black Panther. There would be no Marvel Universe. There would be no X-Men. R.I.P. Stan Lee. But to get to my next and my last topic, and that is the Soulja Boy consoles. Now, this one is kind of gaming, but it's also kind of political, and it shows just how far, how can I say, I don't want to say a rumor, just how far misinformation can get or bad info can get before it gets out of control. Let's start from the jump. There are these things called emulator consoles that exist all over Amazon, all over the internet, really. The one in question cannot be bought on Amazon anymore, but it can be bought elsewhere on other websites. An emulator console basically has games from old systems, Super Nintendo, regular Nintendo, maybe even Atari, Nintendo 64, the list goes on, as quote unquote ROMs. You put the ROMs on a device, you sell it, and you can play it like you were playing it back in the day when you were a kid in front of the TV with your Pop-Tarts, okay? These consoles are pretty cheap and pretty easy to ship from A to B. Now, Soulja Boy had the bright idea, the rapper from back in the day, he had the bright idea to buy a bunch of these and sell them. Or matter of fact, I'll take that back. He didn't buy them and sell them. What he was doing is a thing called drop shipping, which means that you can order the actual console through his website and he would just forward the information to the actual shipper, manufacturer, whatever it is, and have them sent from there. So he was in essence a middleman. He had this website called SouljaGame.com. He was branding these consoles as belonging to him, part of his brand. But they were not, because when you get the console, you would just see some random logo on it that did not have anything to do with Soulja Boy. You're talking about cheap Chinese knockoffs that work pretty well, to be honest with you. But that's what they were. Cheap Chinese knockoffs that came straight from a company. And Soulja Boy will put this crazy tax on top to get his money. The console was probably like $100 on Amazon. But if you went through his website, it was $150. So basically, he was pocketing the $150, giving himself $50, and giving the shipper $100. So it's a pretty big little game he had going on there. The problem came when a lot of YouTubers caught wind of what he was doing and decided to put him on Front Street for it, talking about, oh, it's a scam. You can't do this. You're going to jail, X, Y, and Z. First of all, he wasn't going to jail because although ROMs of games that aren't authorized by the particular company are not legal, he was not the one manufacturing them, the systems that is, procuring the ROMs of the games, or putting it together. All he did was just drop ship. He can just simply say, I did not know that this was illegal, this, that, and the third, and have that be that. There would be no actual going to jail over something like that when you don't have the means of production in your particular establishment. All you're doing is being a middleman. The Chinese were the ones that actually had the ROMs and the production materials to make these devices. The issue with China is that they don't really care about copyright law. Try going to China and extraditing the Chinese man with some copyright law. It'll never happen. It'll never, ever go down. They're notorious for stealing intellectual property from all over the world and selling like it's nothing. They don't really care about it. Cell phones, everything from like hair supplies, whatever they can steal from you, they'll do it. And it's easy to do it because we give them the plans a lot of times in the factories. Like most of this stuff comes from China anyway. The PlayStation 4 and the fake PS4 probably come from the same factory. So it's easy to do stuff like this. But to go back to what I was saying, YouTubers made a big fuss about it. They were trying to get on Soulja Boy, calling him a piece of garbage, all this, that, and the third. When the truth is that the consoles they're talking about were on Amazon for a very long time. The whole thing about the markup, I mean, everybody does the markup. If you want to pay more for a knockoff console, and if you want to get it from Soulja Boy out of all people in the world, then that's your particular bad. You know, I don't know anybody's going to say, you know what? I want to get a new console today. I'm going to go to Soulja Boy's website and get one. It doesn't make any sense. If you're going to spend money like that on the internet, you want to know what you're getting. But moving right along. So eventually, it just becomes this big news story, and the website he has goes away. Now, I think what happened was that Nintendo got involved with it, because if you go to that website right now, socialgame.com, or last time I checked, it goes to Nintendo's actual website. Now, that could be a hack. There could be some haters that are just doing that to get up under his skin. Who knows? Now, I think what he did was remove the website because he got a cease and desist order, probably from Nintendo or another game company. Because they're like, okay, you're not really selling the consoles yourself, but you're doing the drop shipping, which will lead to sales. And we don't want that at all. We want you to stop doing what you're doing. So that's probably what happened, but I can't say that for sure. Either way it goes, it was a big nothing burger because, again, the console still exists. You got Soulja Boy in some hot water with Nintendo. Okay, congratulations. Meanwhile, I can go right now to a website and buy that exact same console that he had for cheaper. All he did was get them some publicity, because before that, I had no idea it was even there. Now, I can't get in trouble for doing this because I'm not the one making the ROMs. I'm not the one doing anything. I'm just buying it from these particular people. How am I going to get in trouble for that? That's not something that's really going to, like, I won't get a knock on my door from Nintendo talking about, hey, we saw your Amazon activity or whatever, and you bought a retro game console without consent. They're not going to do that. They're going to try to find the ones that are providing the stolen software. Rather than you, if you get this box that has stuff on it, you don't know what it is. You don't know how it came to be. You don't know that you can't buy stuff, or you should not buy stuff from a third party. And sometimes third party is okay. I have third party devices all over here. On my computer, I got nothing but third party stuff. This is not even the first party. I built this from parts. So everything in essence is third party. But I digress for now. My point is that this whole issue with Soulja Boy and the fake game consoles, well, not fake, they were actually real, just fraudulent game consoles because they were not authorized by the appropriate people. The whole issue is nothing burger, and I don't particularly care too much about it. So that's pretty much all I got for today's podcast. Thank you for joining me. Definitely appreciate you. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed already to ABL Gaming, to my regular channel, and share the channel right here. Share it far and wide. Share it with your friends, family, etc. If they're going to get triggered, not triggered, whatever the case may be, please share the podcast. And that's pretty much all I got. So until next time, y'all be safe. I'm out, and peace.